Welcome, everybody. Applied Mortgage Academy. We are hosting many webinars this year as we did last year. We had over 150 folks join our webinars in 2024, and I'm so excited to keep that going into 2025. So our last Refinance Readiness webinar of 2024 on the books today, we are going to run through what's a refinance and why do you do it? We'll go through some important market updates, including home values and projections on values, mortgage rates and the projections for rates. And we'll run through also some key refinance examples so that you can be best prepared to act. Now, real quick, because this is a webinar, I don't want people just totally zooming off, looking at the slides, not paying attention. A little bit of housekeeping. You can see me and hear me, but I can't see you or hear you. So don't worry, it's not a meeting format, it's a webinar format. And if you have any questions, I believe the chat may actually be disabled, but there's a Q&A that you can use and you can pop questions in there. They'll actually come over anonymously if you want to, and we can answer any questions that you have. So let's dive in. And this should be definitely under 30 minutes, probably more like 20. So if you're listening to the recording, any questions that you have, just feel free, of course, to email myself or my team or call us. Again, there is no question that is too big or too small. We are here to answer anything and everything related to your home and your financing and feeling secure around that property. When folks are thinking about refinancing, there are a lot of different reasons to do that. And refinancing, by the way, is taking out a brand new mortgage that's going to pay off your existing mortgage, and you'll move forward with that new mortgage and those new terms. So a lot of people who want to get a new mortgage, right, to change their old mortgage, there may be a bunch of different reasons. Lowering the rate and lowering the payment is probably the most common question, right? Everyone wants to pay less money. How do we do that? So lowering the rate, lowering the payment, maybe changing the term of the loan. So if you're on 30 years, you want to bring it to 20 years, or maybe you're on 20 years and you want to take it back out to 30. Removing mortgage insurance, consolidating debt, taking equity out for other things. We're going to go through some really cool stats on how much equity people are sitting on right now in their homes with how much properties have appreciated. And then, of course, also using your house for other investments, right? Maybe paying for someone to go to college. You got to cover the student loan debt, or buying a new investment property or a rental property or a second home, right? There's all these other reasons. And of course, adding or removing a person from your loan may be a reason as well. So we'll talk about some of these most common examples today. And I want to start off with property values. So how many of you, just throw it in the chat, you could make it anonymous if you want, it'll just come through to me that way. How many of you have owned your home, or bought it, I should say, sometime within the last 5 years? Give a second for a couple answers to come through. Perfect. 2020, 2018, 2020, 2023. Awesome. So kind of all over the place. Cool. So what this is showing is that the change in home prices nationally throughout the last 5 years, national average change in home price, 57%, over 57%. And you can see here in New England, where I'm located, 65%. And this is from FHFA. So this is a national survey. And if you take a peek over the last 30 years, our next slide here, home price increasing 321%. That's pretty amazing. So wanted to include this just to show what a tremendous investment real estate has been and continues to be, whether you're looking at over the last 30 years or just most recently in the last 5 years. And what economists are predicting now is that home prices are going to continue to appreciate. So this is showing potential growth over the next 5 years based on increased home equity. Your home equity is the amount of the house minus the amount of the mortgage. So if this is your house value is, 350 and your mortgage is 300, your equity, the portion you own, is 50. And this is just a projection of how much that equity is going to grow and the value of the home is going to grow. And the really cool thing is that homeowners right now have so much appreciation, have so much more equity than their debt. So this chart is showing in trillions, because this is again a national chart here. So $35 trillion in home equity versus 13 trillion in debt. So what's that? Almost 3 times as much equity? Not quite. 2 to 3 times as much equity as debt. So as a homeowner, you're sitting on such a tremendous amount of wealth that continues to appreciate. As far as mortgage rates go, mortgage rates this year are projected to probably stay just about the same or a little bit lower than they have been recently. I wish I could say that they're going to come down, but this chart is showing projections from Fannie Mae, Mortgage Bankers Association, Wells Fargo, just some, big research conglomerates, right, with really smart economists who are trying to predict what's going to happen with rates. The truth is, nobody knows for sure where the market's going to go because mortgage rates are based on a variety of different factors and a lot about the sentiment of the market. How is the economy doing? What's going on nationally? What's going on internationally? Are there wars? Are there pandemics, right? Is there too much inflation? Are we in a recession, right? All of these things will impact where rates go. And you can see this chart from earlier this week. Rates have moved. This is over the last year, up and down, up and down, up and down, all the time. There are days and weeks where rates have changed an entire 0.5% in just one day or 1 week. And that's gone anywhere from the lows being around 6.25% to the highs being around 7.5%. That's what happened over this last year. So, the average for the rates probably roughly was like just under 7%. And that's kind of where the predictions are coming. Maybe that we'll see lower 6s at some point throughout next year. But I would just continue to wrap your brain around the fact that the market's going to remain very volatile. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that causes mortgage rates to go up and down more frequently. As far as tracking your home values and tracking your apps, most of you, because we've already worked together, if we've already worked together, are probably on our HomeBot Homeowner Digest tool. This is a really cool app. You get every month an email, and there's actually an app you can go in and look at any time that shows what your home value is and also where mortgage rates are roughly, so you can figure out, is there a way to save more money? Is there a way to take cash out? Basically, it's just a tool to help you keep building your wealth through real estate. If you don't already have this tool, just send me an email and we can make sure that you get it. And again, this is using an algorithm, right? So no valuation model is going to be perfect. When you're looking on this HomeBot tool or Zillow or Realtor.com, they're just using algorithms. So remember, you just use that to track the trend. To really get a solid idea of your house value, you want to talk to a real estate agent, which you should be doing anyway, checking in every year with your realtor just to ask, how's my house doing? How's my property value doing? But if you want this little tool right on your phone, that's something that we offer complimentary as well. And so let's get in kind of to the meat here of the most common reasons to refinance. So the important piece to remember from the market overview is that properties are projected to continue to appreciate. And mortgage rates are probably going to be, hopefully, maybe in the mid 6s. All right. Right now, they're more like low 7s, but most economists are predicting we'll see a little bit of a decrease, maybe down to mid 6s. So either way, the most important thing is to be ready to act if rates come down, because let me show you right here. Let me just go back to this rate slide. Mortgage rates dropped kind of like end of August, early September for a very short window. Look at this. This is like a few weeks right here that mortgage rates were on their way down, and they came down and bounced up and came down and bounced back up, right? So this did not give consumers a very long window to prepare. And there's no leeway here, right? Like there's nobody who is so honed in and able to predict the market that they can just say, oh, rates are going to drop tomorrow. Quick, be ready to refinance, right? So the goal of this presentation is to just teach you how to get prepared for refinancing so that if rates do look like they're on the way down, that you can make an informed decision and you can be ready to go ahead on the refinance and you're not scrambling to figure out, is it the right time? Am I going to save enough money? What kind of documents do I need to put together, right? We can do that homework ahead of time and then we'll know when you're ready. You can just move right ahead. So some common reasons, again, we said are lowering the payment and also paying off debt. So let's look at lowering the payment. How do you know it's the right time? How do you know you're going to have enough savings? I think the really key thing to remember is that mortgage refinancing, there are costs associated with it. So you want to make sure that the monthly savings is enough to warrant the fact that you're going to be either increasing your loan amount or you're going to be paying for the costs out of pocket. Or, you can pay and it kind of offsetting going with a slightly higher rate and then the lender will cover some of the costs. But nonetheless, there is a cost no matter how it's structured. So just be aware too. A lot of lenders will solicit people and they'll say, this is a no cost refinance. Well, the trick is they're just rolling it into the interest rate and giving you a higher rate. So just be aware, right, that that's what's going on. Now, this particular scenario here is showing somebody who started off at a 7.5 interest rate and they ended up being able to refinance into a 6.375 rate, so almost a whole percent lower. And that took their monthly payment from 2,449 down to 2,276. So they saved about $170 a month. So if I said to you, hey, would you want to save $170 a month? And that felt like a comfortable monthly savings for you, then what we'd want to do from there is figure out what does that mean the rate would have to come down to for you to get that savings. And then that's what we're watching for. You already know what the payment's going to be. We're just watching for that strike point to be able to move ahead. Now, this is based off a roughly $300,000 loan. So that whole percent savings, again, about $170 a month, they felt like that made sense. And for some people, they're going to want only $100 savings per month. So maybe it means the rate's only lower by 0.5%. That's okay. It's your financial plan. It's what's comfortable for you. Maybe you want to save $300 a month. Again, we figure it out. It's what's comfortable for you. It's also important to remember that you can refinance more than once. So if rates come down a little bit now and you refinance and then they come down a little bit more, you can always redo the terms again at that point, as long as you qualify, right? And the costs, usually you want to just make sure that there's a reasonable break even point. So if you're adding more closing costs or if you're adding more to the loan to save 170 a month or whatever it ends up being, does that warrant the additional costs that you have? And typically that break-even point is about 2 years or so. So again, if you refinance and then you refinance again, that may make sense. It's all about what your needs are as far as your monthly savings and your goals go. You also want to make sure that you're going to stay in the house for a long enough amount of time too. Sometimes people will refinance and then they end up selling right away. And that really doesn't make sense because you won't have kept the house long enough to actually see the benefits of the lower payment. So that chart that we just went over for lowering the payment is one reason that people refinance. The second most common reason that I see is debt consolidation, especially now more than ever. Those credit card rates are quite high. And if you've got a credit card rate that's at 29%, and even if your mortgage is at 3%, you want to look at your blended interest costs. Okay, so if you're carrying $25,000 in credit card debt at a 29% interest rate, it's going to take a really long time and a lot of effort to get that paid off potentially. And so a lot of people feel like they're stuck because they don't want to change that low fixed rate they have. But your home could be a really good tool to get you out of that debt. So this was an example where somebody had accumulated $65,000 in debt. Their mortgage was about 124, but all the other debt they had, car loans, student loans, high interest credit cards, they were paying about $1,600 a month to keep up with all those other bills in addition to their mortgage. So with their mortgage payment and their other bills, they were paying about $2,900 a month to cover their household expenses, just their debt expenses, right? I mean, they still had to pay for gas and groceries and everything else too. This was just credit cards, loans, mortgage. So when they came to us and said that's really their pain point, it's really hard for them to carry that $2,900 a month. We looked at refinancing. The rate ended up being higher, right? We're in a higher interest rate environment, but they were able to pay off that high interest credit card debt and consolidate everything using the value of their house, using the equity in their house. And they got their payment down to about $2,100 a month because they paid off all that other higher interest debt. They rolled it all in with the mortgage. And now their household budget went from paying about $2,900 to paying about $2,100. So they saved, I mean, the exact number is $775 a month that they saved. And psychologically, I know that going from, in this case, the 5 1/8 rate up to the 6.875 sometimes doesn't feel good. But that $65,000 in other debt that's at a higher interest rate, there's so much difficulty in getting that paid off. And now it's rolled into this fixed rate. What's even cooler is if they took that $775 extra that they would be saving, they could save it. They could put it in an investment account every month if they were really disciplined, right? Where it would grow and grow and grow. They could certainly go out and use it for other things and not feel so strapped on their monthly cash flow, right? But the other thing they could do with it is they could take that 775, they could keep paying it toward their mortgage payment. So basically they could put an extra $775,000 each month toward the principal balance of the loan, and they'd be able to pay off that mortgage in 12 years instead of 30 years. Did you catch how amazing that is? So just by reallocating this $775 a month, instead of it going toward all the high interest credit card debt and all the other crap they were having to pay, they were super disciplined and put it toward back into the house, back into this mortgage on this fixed rate. Instead of stretching everything back out to 30 years, they'd actually be able to pay that mortgage off in 12 years. And by the way, this scenario also gave them an extra $26,000 in cash out to just do with whatever they wanted. Again, they could save that, they could use it for other things, right? So this opened up a whole other opportunity for this family, freeing up $26,000 to pad to their savings and freeing up $775 a month. That's a really great tool to use for refinancing. And consumer credit card debt right now is at an absolute all-time high. This statistic here, this graph is from, if you go to the website Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, you can really find any number of graphs and statistics. It's really an awesome site if you're a data junkie like I am. This is consumer loans. So this is for credit cards and revolving plans. So that means basically revolving debt is your credit card debt. And you can just see how this is escalated up to into the trillions, 11 trillion. So utilizing that equity in your home to potentially take care of some of this high interest credit card debt, it can be really, I think the biggest feeling consumers have is it's like shameful. It's like they don't want to have the conversation, right? To just call and say, hey, I have this other debt. What do I do? Until it's too late. And I always say, just call me sooner, right? Because if you miss any payments, that's when it gets really tricky. So, just remember we're a resource and call before any payments get missed. So also just a reminder that we do have our Safe Harbor refinance program. So for those of you in the beginning who said you bought, in the last couple of years, you may be eligible for this program. And if you meet the parameters, we actually don't charge our administrative fee. So it makes that break-even point we were talking about, how much you're paying to do the refinance versus how much you're saving, it makes that a lot shorter. So a really big incentive to keep your eye on things. So the biggest suggestion I always have is let's do this consultation together. If we haven't done it already, let's find out, how long do you think you're going to be in this house more? What's most important to you? Do you want to improve your cash flow? Do you want to save on a monthly basis? Do you want to get the lowest payment? Are you going to look to use this house for other things like buy another house, pay for kids' college? Like what's going on in your life? Right? And how can we use your home as a tool to leverage to continue to build wealth? I've also been having a lot of really cool conversations with folks about using the equity in their home to help their kids or grandkids to start to build their real estate portfolio. So your home is a great tool to be able to do that. So we can do the consultation. We can figure out where does the rate need to be for you to feel comfortable on that payment so that as soon as that happens, you're ready to just go ahead, do the application and get the rate locked. Because remember going back to the chart where we had how much rates change daily and throughout the day right here. Those rates, look at this day. Look at this huge drop from about 6.875 down to probably about 6.375, right? Within a week. So had we already had, even when rates were up here and it's like, well, it doesn't make sense to refinance because rates are still 7%. If we have the conversation now, you're prepared. You could have locked in on this one day that rates plummeted before they now have gone back up to 7% again. And I think we're going to see this as we go into the new year. Remember these rate projections, they're not, this is average. It's not all that lower than it has been, but if this is average, that means there's going to be volatile days where all of a sudden we got these drops. So I really hope that this was helpful to just get a little bit of information on how to be ready. Again, the next steps would really just to be to set up that annual mortgage review, that refinance readiness consultation, and we'd have this conversation, and then you'd be ready from there to just gather up your documents and be ready to go should rates end up coming down into that territory that you're looking for. And we are hosting a variety of these webinars. I've partnered as an ambassador with First Home IQ, which is an awesome company that does a ton of market research and really helps us to be best prepared to help you, right? And to help with financial literacy and to help with learning how to build wealth through real estate. So stay tuned. Keep an eye on our newsletter if you're not already subscribed to that, and on our website to look for upcoming webinars. Please feel free to share this with friends and family too. And we hope to get that mortgage consultation scheduled with you as well. Hope everybody has a great holiday to finish off the rest of their year. And thanks for tuning in.